The trial of Ashley Benefield is underway, the Black Swan murder trial, and it's going pretty fast. We're seeing a lot of witnesses take the stand. We're seeing a lot of testimony being given. And as this continues on, as I always say with any case, we can have all of our conjecture beforehand, but let's let it get to the courtroom before we make any judgments. And this is a case where I think that's important. Joining me to discuss, Robin Dreeke, retired FBI special agent, chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program. Let me ask you this. If someone is doing something, like in this case, she is saying that it was stand your ground self-defense. The court said earlier on, we don't believe that. But if she believes it, like truly in her heart believes it, and isn't lying, isn't out there trying to spin a tale or a story or some motive, but in her mind thinks there is danger here, whether it's based in reality or not, does that make her guilty of the crime if she truly felt threatened, even if she wasn't?
Yeah, it's a great question. Context matters a lot.
Yeah.
But in the court of law, just because you believe you're innocent doesn't make you innocent.
Hmm.
Um,
True.
so that's also part of it. But I think when we're going for an understanding her mindset, that's an important factor to understand. So far though, what I have, maybe it's been there, but I haven't been able to find it. The critical things to me in here, there's a partnership between, as I see it, again from limited data points I'm getting, between her and her mom. I really want to see more
Mm.
between the mom's influence on her in that context.
Yeah.
Her mind is so still young. It's been very malleable
Hmm.
during this time period. Before the prefrontal lobe fully forms, roughly age of 24. So we're kind of in that ballpark.
Yeah.
Um, and it becomes extremely susceptible to suggestion, especially if you've lived I won't, a sheltered life seems like I'm being demeaning, but I don't mean it in a
Sure.
demeaning way. A, a non-worldly experience,
Hmm.
where you're having a lot of things provided for you by people around
A
you that are taking
charmed
care of you.
life.
There you go, a charmed life. And so, when you bounce or possibly bounce from, a life with mom to a life with a guy with a lot of money, that is promising all these wonderful things, I think potential divided loyalties happen here because, I mean, again, this is just from what I'm seeing because all
Hmm.
of a sudden, we're seeing instances where she's going to court to do battle potentially, and all of a sudden they go home together,
Hmm.
and then all of a sudden it's not snip, snap, snip, snap. It's so that's why this is really kind of crazy. That's why I still haven't seen the reason for her behavior come out, and I'm that's why I'm so curious about the relationship with the mom that I haven't really seen too much yet.
Well, it's interesting when you just kind of look at the behavior, and it's easier to understand Doug's behavior as well,
Yeah.
because he believed he was going there to help her pack things up. They had an agreement; they were getting back together. They were going to go back to Maryland, I believe, and that's what was going on in his mind. But she had already, in the background, talked to her attorney and had set this whole thing up. Of I'm scared, I need to have some protection here. I need to go somewhere where I'm going to be safe, but at the same time is telling him to come in and invite him. I mean, it's you can't have it both ways. Is the
Right.
reality of it, and yeah, you're going to upset someone. Not in any way does that excuse any sort of violence, but there is no evidence of violence of him hurting her or anything of that nature, especially that day where he was shot. But yeah, you're going to make someone a little bit upset if they came all the way across the country. They're going to pack you up, and you're all thinking you're getting back together, and suddenly you're not. Like, what is going on here? But then if you look at the heat of that moment, of if he got upset, maybe said something, and if she's perceiving that that is going to turn into some sort of violent outburst, whether there's evidence for it or not in the past, if she's perceiving that, and through her spectrum of viewing all this, feels she's in danger, gets that gun out, and obviously she's fairly impulsive, and then fires at him. Um, is it stand your ground, or is it is a cold-blooded murder. I mean, it all kind of goes through the spectrum of what is she thinking at what time. But again, if one person is thinking one thing, it doesn't make it right. It doesn't excuse a crime either.
Yeah, I'm still going back to her inconsistent behavior. She has very incongruent behaviors. And
Yeah.
so when someone so in other words, as we've said numerous times, life follows a behavior arc,
Hmm.
and which is very predictable, reasonable, and even when you get slight little outliers, those outliers from someone's behavior are caused by events, individuals, actions that cause an outlier, but then we come back center again to
Hmm.
our normal behavior. With her, we we're seeing these, again, just context I'm seeing, we're kind of seeing wild swings,
Yes.
and so wild swings don't happen in here necessarily. Wild swings are caused by external things that are causing wild thing, unless she's completely psychotic.
Hmm.
Well, we're not
Doesn't
clinical
appear to be that
psychologists.
way. Yeah.
There's no indication of that. So, in
Yeah.
other words, so there's something in her external world that is causing wild swings.
Mhm.
Hence, that's why I'm really curious about the mother's influence, the input, or someone else. I don't care who it is, but
Yeah.
there's an influence that's causing wild swings. But in those moments when she's alone with him, she seems to come back to a baseline with him.
Hmm.
That's
To it.
why
Yeah.
this murder, the self-defense thing is really strange to me, because now granted, now we got to give an optic from his point of view. He's glasses half full. He seems to have rose-colored glasses when dealing with her, because from what we're seeing, he seems to only see her in this one arc, and then
Yeah.
he's seeing a wild swing. But then the wild swing's happening when they're apart, but when they get back together again, oh, it's kind of back to normal again, huh?
Hmm.
See what I mean? So it's only when they're apart that she kind of deviate.
Hmm.
What's happening in those moments? But see what I mean? So that's why it's kind of convoluted. There's a piece to this puzzle with input that's going into her brain that I haven't seen yet.
When you look at the case and you look back at Ashley Benefield and Doug Benefield, I mean, there is a piece to her story that I don't think this happens in a bubble. I think there's more to it, and I don't know what the extent of it is, but there is the story of at one point he draws a gun, shoots it into the ceiling, and I mean
Mhm.
even his daughter Ava had testified. Yeah, she saw the hole in the ceiling. That's not normal behavior to
Right.
pull a gun and shoot it into your ceiling in any way, shape, or form. That's traumatizing if anybody draws a gun, period. So it gives me a little pause and a little more understanding if her thinking is what is he capable of if he did this one time, what could he do? Especially if she's already kind of an on edge person, an impulsive person, and kind of goes to the nth degree in her thinking of worst case thinking, which she might. She's very impulsive. Uh, if there was some sort of an argument that day, regardless of who caused it, why it started, or what if it's justified or not. If someone's done that to you in the past, you may be a little more cautious and you may be a little more scared for your own safety, knowing what they've been capable of in the past.
No doubt, because we don't know how she reacted to it. We don't know
Yeah.
how she internalized it. And because again, I'm still not, I don't have good context of
Yeah.
the impetus for that event, because that to him, from everything we're also seeing, that's also an extreme outlier.
It is.
And people have extreme outliers.
Hmm.
Was it, what led up to that?
Hmm.
And is he then displaying the same behaviors in front of her, which led her to the self-defense because she's fearful? There's so many. I think because you have such a um incongruent mental state between him and his lifelong experiences because of his age and what he's been through in life, and her youngness of brain and experiences. I think there's such a disconnect,
Hmm.
that's where I think a lot of the challenges with his communication and context is really at odds a lot of times.
Yeah.
I know it sounds like I'm grasping at straws at this, but it's just challenging to try to understand, because both of them are not in sync with each other,
Yeah.
obviously.
No.
and I'm trying to understand how and why that's happening because she's going on wild swings. He seems pretty congruent. We have one outlier of shooting the ceiling. I would love to know what really happened there, but
Yeah.
see what I mean? It's just yeah,
It's
it's hard.
incongruent, and it's not beyond the scope of understanding to think. I mean, especially young people, kids, especially. You get into your early 20s too, which she was. To get your way, to get what you want. Sometimes you go on wild swings. Sometimes,
Mhm.
and it never excuses anybody's bad behavior or abusive behavior, but it can be abusive to go on those wild swings sometimes and keep pushing somebody and pushing somebody and pushing somebody until they end up going into outlying behavior like pulling the gun. I mean, if that's very uncommon for him to do something like that, how did he get there? And it's not to
Right.
blame the victim, but sometimes people will push and push and push until they get to the place of turning that person who's not a monster into a monster through manipulation and abuse. It can go both ways. Never excuses it. Never has a reason to it, but people are people. Humans are humans. They're going to do what they're going to do, and I just wonder if she had this goal of I only want my kid for me. I don't want him in the picture. I'm going to push and push and push him and manipulate because that's how I know how to get what I want in life. And eventually bad things happen. And eventually you get into situations that are scary and eventually got to a situation where she could say that she pulled the gun. Now, is that what she consciously did? I don't know, but I do wonder if that's kind of a subconscious behavior of pushing and pushing and pushing someone to the point of you know them getting to a very bad state, and then it's oh my gosh, I'm the victim here. But what caused this whole situation to come about?
I'm really curious where the idea of that came into her head.
Yeah.
Um, so again, continue looking at behavior patterns. Her escalating to that extreme violence is from 0 to 100.
Mm-hmm.
There's no history, at least from what we've seen, of her going to that kind of violent reaction. He had one incidence of it that's been, claimed with shooting the ceiling. Okay, but where did she get the idea that that's a way to resolve this
Yeah.
problem from 0 to 100? And also, his behavior being so easygoing, well, perception wise, showing up, doing the move and everything. So he wasn't expecting a 0 to 100 in the way it manifested itself either. So
Mhm.
again, I keep going back to who put that in her head that
Yeah.
this is the way we solve this problem. It's just,
And if that's the only way you know how to solve problems, I'm just conjecture. I'm gonna guess probably upbringing, probably something in that, whether it be parental or whatever it may be, friends, parent, whoever. If that's all you know and you're that age, that's what you're gonna go to. You're gonna go to
yep.
that sort of thinking if you don't know any other way of solving problems. Let's take a look at this video. This is the defense telling the jury about what they claim took place that night.
Fearing for her life, she heads for her bedroom where she has a firearm. She gets to the firearm, she turns around, she orders Doug to stop. When she looks up, he's in the doorway. Instead of seeing the gun and leaving, Doug gets into this warrior pose with his arms moving purposely and advances. At that point, petrified, she fires, believing that if he gets a hold of her, she will be either seriously injured or killed. To her horror, after firing, he continues to advance. She absolutely panics. She tries to get away and backs to the side to create more distance between them, but there is no place left for her to go in this small bedroom. At that point, in utter panic, she keeps firing the gun. She sees Doug's legs go up in the air, almost as if he was running and slipped. and he falls backwards. Instinctively, she flees the house and heads next door to John Sant's house.
She may be a great actress, but I think she believes her narrative.
100%. Interesting phraseology, which I think explains some of this. Warrior pose.
Yeah.
Doesn't it, so again, this is what I call really deep empathy. Deep empathy, when you hear those words, think of yourself. When would I use words like that? Well, she's telling a story. She not a story like fictitious story. She in that moment using the warrior poses, she sees the world through a fantasization of what reality is.
Mhm.
And as she's seeing it, she's seeing a warrior coming at her. And so in her mind, she's playing out and maybe projecting forward what this warrior is going to do to her. And that's what gives her that context of fear rather than being based in a reality based on a behavior arc she's seen. Because again, she's living in the moment without a lot of life experience to kind of give her that. And so that's the fear she has. I'm with you though. The emotional reactions she having are completely congruent with of what is being described.
Yeah.
But again, that description of warrior pose means that she's taken an image that she has from a memory of watching something on TV or a movie and placing it on her own reality rather than just describing he took an aggressive stance. In other words, she could say he took an aggressive stance with me. That is kind of more pragmatic way of describing that rather than say he took a warrior pose.
Mhm.
Interesting phraseology.
It is. It's very interesting. This is a weird one. This is kind of a tough one where I don't
Oh,
believe
it's
she's just sitting
tragic.
here lying and trying to tell a story. I think she believes her story, but
Mhm.
I think her prism is off. I think the way that she's seeing the world is not accurate. And I don't think the actions were justified, but I think in her mind they were. So
I
does that make her then,
totally agree.
you know, a monster, or someone who just really needs help to see the world in a more accurate light? I don't know. It's
Then it comes down to after all those things, and I completely agree with you, what's justice in this situation
yeah.
then? I mean, a life has been lost because she has a lack of ability of context of
Hmm.
reality. She still took a life,
Yes.
and there's a daughter that says great things about her dad and deeply misses him,
Hmm.
so
And there's a daughter on, yeah, and on that end that
on
wants her mom free. I mean, I think it's kind of sick
yeah.
how they have used the daughter out in front of the courthouse, like keep my mom free. That I think is kind of shitty. Um, but
Yeah.
um, but still, it's like what is the right, what is justice here, and that's I think the big. Hey, thanks for checking out the video. Be sure to follow us wherever you download podcasts, and especially Apple Podcasts, where you can get advanced episode and premium content on our premium channel right there. Also, be sure to follow us on social media so you don't miss any breaking updates on the stories that matter to you most. We're on TikTok, X, Instagram, Facebook. Just search Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Brueski, and you'll find us right there. Again, thanks for watching.